I would say number one is the risk posed by criminals. This is also, referred to as a cybersecurity risk. This, what I'm talking about, is ransomware attacks, business email compromise attacks, phishing attacks, all the things that we read about in the news in terms of cybersecurity. Number two is the risk posed by third-party vendors. We had the CrowdStrike incident in the news recently. We have a case in California against a vendor by the name of Acronis, which is a backup vendor. And what we see is when it comes to IT services, solutions providers offer those services through an ecosystem of other vendors. We call them third-party service providers. And anytime there's an act or omission of a third-party service provider that causes a harm to an end-user customer, it also raises the question, under what circumstances would the service provider be legally responsible? And then the third is the regulators. The international data privacy laws coming out of Europe, including GDPR. We've got laws in Canada, including PIPEDA and the Canadian Health Act. In the U.S., we have HIPAA, GLBA, and CMMC, which regulate vertical markets like healthcare, financial services, and government contracting. And then the most challenging is the recent patchwork of state data privacy laws modeled after California's CCPA. And now we have data privacy laws in California, New York, Colorado, Connecticut, Virginia, Texas, Utah, Montana, and 3 to 5 other states coming online, every year for the foreseeable future. And so the other biggest category of risk is that regulatory compliance risk. How do we make sure that our customer contracts and the services that we're delivering thereunder are compliant with all of these various data privacy and security laws? Those are the big three. The fourth one that I would add is insurance. Service providers now need to carry professional liability insurance, which would be the equivalent of the insurance I carry as a lawyer for legal malpractice, or what a doctor might carry for medical malpractice. An E&O policy will cover any claims made by the end user customer that the service provider acted in violation of the agreement or was in some way negligent and at fault for something that happened. But more importantly, what we're seeing now is service provider agreements requiring end users to carry their own cybersecurity insurance that would be the first dollar out in the event of an incident involving a service provider. And so the fifth one I'll say is the emerging common law standard of care that may be articulated in cases that are pending today that would say, notwithstanding the existence of a contract, that the service provider owes a duty of reasonable care to protect the customer that could go beyond what's in a contract and could apply even wholly in the absence of a contract for services. This would be a new common law or tort duty and a standard of care that would be sort of newly articulated. And there are cases that are pending now where that topic is at issue. Well, the MSPs over the last decade have really focused their energy on solving cybersecurity problems for their customers. And I think what's changing now is we're moving out of what I call the cybersecurity era of managed services and moving into the AI or artificial intelligence era of managed services. And so that's creating a tremendous change in how MSPs need to talk and engage with their customers. It's creating an opportunity for all sorts of new ecosystem tools and consultants around AI. And it also creates a need for new legal agreements. We had to create a whole new set of agreements specifically to address the legal concepts and issues that arise in artificial intelligence-related services, like an MSP supporting a customer who's implementing Microsoft Copilot as being a different kind of legal engagement than helping monitor networks or do desktop support or do backup and disaster recovery work, which have been the predominant realms of managed service providers in the last decade. In the next decade, we'll be moving into more of a managed AI type agreement structure where MSPs will be entering into long-term recurring revenue contracts to deliver AI-driven, AI-powered solutions for their customers. Any good contract is going to define and categorize and assign ownership of any of the key intellectual property components of the subject matter of the contract. When you start talking about AI solutions, there are whole new categories of legal issues. For example, in a traditional managed services contract, there's nothing about learnings or trainings or models or input data or output data, or the concept of responsible AI, the idea that maybe a regulation may come along and make the technology obsolete. Those are not provisions that are in a traditional managed services contract. But because of the unique challenges related to AI, the unique intellectual property that exists in AI solutions that does not exist in non-AI solutions, there's a need for a whole new way of thinking about and a whole new set of contracts. This is not, when we made our change and added our service attachment for managed AI, it wasn't an edit of a managed services agreement. It was start from scratch and really understand what are the unique legal concepts and risks associated with assisting customers with AI solutions, and how do we codify that into a contract that's fair for both sides. The biggest fact pattern we see is a ransomware incident. Maybe a customer has a vulnerability in some way. Maybe they're not using multi-factored authentication, and for whatever reason, they become the victim of a ransomware attack. In almost all of those situations, you're dealing with the criminal act of a third party, the ransomware attacker, and perhaps some tool provider, probably a backup solution or a cybersecurity tool, that are at the root cause of why this incident occurred. But what we see is that the MSP client, the service provider client, winds up getting sued. The criminal is not findable and not suable. The tools provider's contract says that they're not responsible for anything, that, even if they're at fault, either the customer or the MSP has to hold them harmless. And so it really boils down to a dispute between the end user customer and the service provider, neither one of which are at fault. And so that's what makes for, court cases where, you've got, it's not clear that the person being asked to pay is not the one who's at fault, and this sense of fairness is lost on, giving the victim the bill. And that's what happens in a ransomware attack. That fact pattern comes up all the time. Regardless of whether you're an MSP or an IT consulting firm, what's happening today is you do a project for a client. 6 months later, they have a ransomware attack and you get sued. I've got a case like that in Houston that I just got hired on last week. And that's the identical fact pattern to the well-publicized Acronis case that's pending in Sacramento, where a law firm sued a service provider for allegedly failing to properly advise them regarding the risks of ransomware. And in that same case, the backup solution was not successful in restoring the data that was ransomed. And so thus you have a case. So that's an example of ransomware. The other big fact pattern that we're seeing is business email compromise. What that is a more patient, more sophisticated attack that typically involves both infiltration of a network and spoofing of email addresses to masquerade as a legitimate employee of a company and to redirect funds that are being paid to the target of the hacking from their customers. So in a case that I'm handling in Dallas, my client is a masonry contract. They placed an order to purchase stone from a stone supplier for the building of a hotel in the DFW Metroplex. They sent them $540,000 via an ACH, but that ACH allegedly went to bad actors who infiltrated the email network, sent an email out to my customer's accounting department that said there'd been a change in the coordinates and that would they please send the money to a new bank. And my client sent $540,000 via ACH, and the stone company says they never got it. And so these types of attacks are happening against Texas companies every day. And if you look at the stats about Cybersecurity threats, Texas is way up on the top of the list nationwide for the number of victims of these types of cybersecurity events. And so whether you're a service provider, an end user, used to think that I'm a small potatoes, nobody's after me. The reality is that because law enforcement does not have the bandwidth to investigate the little crimes, all the bad guys are now targeting the little guys because they know those crimes in many ways will fly under the radar of law enforcement, which in today's world is only really equipped to deal with the most egregious and the most highest dollar amount types of incidents. When ChatGPT-4 came out, I began training it and created a solution we call Lobby, which is the name of our AI legal assistant. And what Lobby is capable of doing is analyzing legal agreements. So if there's a prospective client that has a current agreement and they want to get an understanding of how it compares to our recommended contracting best practices, Lobby can digest that document, summarize it, analyze it, and then most importantly, compare it against our recommended best practices. So what you wind up with is a legal document analyzer that not only can easily digest and summarize the document in a way that would be much faster than I could do on my own, but also gets me to the place that I need to be to have the consultation with the client, because it's also showing in what ways theirs differs from ours, and those differences become the incremental legal protections that a prospective client would have by coming onto our platform. So we use it as a way to benchmark our prospective clients' current state of legal protection, and then we're able to quickly show them what's good about their current agreements and what may be missing, and how by moving with Monjur, they would be in a position to get enhanced legal protection. Let's just take a very limited use case like restaurants. In Texas, if you want to go to a good restaurant, many times you have to get an appointment. You have to have a reservation. Well, every restaurant that takes reservations has human beings calling those people who make reservations to confirm the reservation. The reason is that the science says that if you call them, they're more likely to show up or to tell you if they can't. And so as a result, your table turns, your efficiency, your wait times, all of those things are improved for your restaurant, and that's why everyone does it. Well, with AI, generative AI-based voice solutions, generative voice assistants, all of those things can be fully automated, and you can confirm 500 reservations in a matter of minutes. These AI tools can make 500 calls a minute. So be prepared for a revolution in AI that really impacts not only small business in ways that we've already seen. The big corporate world has in many ways already been impacted by AI. The small business is now about to see the AI revolution, and the consumer is about to start interacting with AI, and particularly voice assistants, in a much more meaningful way than the way we talk to Hey Siri or Alexa or any of these other primitive, non-generative AI solutions. But once you start incorporating voice technology with advanced artificial intelligence, now you have the ability to transform sales, marketing, customer support, HR, appointment setting, appointment follow-ups. And these tools are here. It's not a question of this is science fiction. This is, ready to go. Customers using it. Hotels booking 3,000 reservations a month using an AI voice assistant. So the technology is here. It's scary in a lot of ways. It's risky from a legal perspective in a lot of ways. But those businesses that learn how to navigate those legal challenges and those regulatory risks and implement AI solutions to scale their business and enhance the customer journey are going to win. This is the age of AI, and the businesses that leverage it the best are going to be the winners, and those that don't embrace it well will be left behind.